Yo, this your girl Jula. You're listening to the Pastry Bear Podcast with Winston Murdoch. Hola, esta es Jula. Estás escuchando el Pastry Bear Podcast con Winston Murdoch.
Welcome back. This week's episode is a continuation of the process that we started to talk on in a previous episode. You can feel free to go and check out that episode titled Finding Purpose in Food and see how I was able to find my purpose after being a chef for over 15 years. In today's podcast, I'm going to expound on the why in my new path. This is a key point to support the building of a foundation to your professional future. While finding your purpose is enlightening, there will be various situations that will test your strength and may take you off course, whether in a positive or a productive or even in a negative or destructive manner. Life itself is filled with twists and turns, highs and lows. And if you're not equipped, then there's a strong chance that you'll lose your way. And this is where your why will be that motivation to keep you going. What up, y'all? And welcome to another episode of the Pastry Bear Podcast. I'm your host, Winston Murdoch.
Vous écoutez le podcast Pastry Bear avec Winston Murdoch.
Pastry Bear.
Yo, why you are run the cut in a Murdoch and the lie?
Watching a Murdoch.
What do I mean by why? You will hear me say why throughout this entire episode. And I want to explain what I mean by why. Well, the why would be the purpose behind starting a company. Let's just say you decide that you wanted to start a company, and there's a specific reason for doing that. That would be the why. The why can be the base behind your studies or the reasoning behind your dreams. It can be considered as the inspiration that is the engine behind, let's say, the shell of a 6-quart KitchenAid mixer that is used to create your favorite cakes. The why is the reasoning why you do the things you do, or the purpose for which you do what you do. The compelling higher purpose that inspires us and acts as the source of all we do. Which means it is the reasoning behind all the things we do. So let's say you wanted to be an athlete and Usain Bolt is your inspiration, and you decide that you want to beat his fastest time and become the fastest person alive. Then you chasing that dream of becoming the fastest man alive would be your why. Why is important to the process. Knowing why will be the driving force that helps you to not give up when things are not going to plan. So just imagine, you want to be an athlete. You suffer some injuries. You lost a few races. But always remembering why will help you not to give up. You want to become the fastest person, so you're not gonna give up. Your why will help you to continue on that journey. And on the other side of the spectrum, your why will help to keep you centered when you're experiencing tremendous growth, whether financially or professionally. Because there's some time in life where you start out on a journey, you have a reason why you're doing it. But then, for instance, money gets into the picture. And in order to make more money, you have to find yourself doing things that you wouldn't normally do. Things that go against what you believe. This is when you can go back to your why, which is going to keep you centered. So it's important to have a why when you're on a journey. I'm going to give you a situation about a person who found their why, but lost it and lost everything.
Whoa!
We cooking up a storm today.
A young chef from Trinidad, who we will call Tony, moved to Orlando, Florida. After he completed culinary school, he told me he wanted to start out on his career cooking delicious food from his Trinidadian culture, recipes that was created by his late grandfather. You see, Tony really loved his granddad. You know, his granddad played a significant role in his upbringing. His granddad taught him a lot of the fundamental things that helped him throughout his entire years. They had a special bond. And one of the things they used to do together was cooking. Again, this was one of the reasons why he decided that he wanted to become a chef. And Tony could cook. In efforts to keeping his granddad legacy alive, Tony wanted to showcase how talented of a chef his granddad was. So he opened a restaurant. It was small, and pretty quickly, people gravitated to his food as it was driven by a story. When people learned about Tony and his granddad and the ingredients that they used, people fell in love with it. That became Tony's why. He wanted to show people and tell people and have people taste his food from his granddad. As the restaurant got bigger and his popularity increased, a restaurant company decided that they wanted to partner with him to grow his company. But there would be some changes, some small changes, they said. But these changes affected the core or the why behind the restaurant. They wanted to revamp the menu and the atmosphere, you know, the basic stuff, and make it more American-inspired, American influence, you know. So the food moved from Trinidadian food to an American-inspired Caribbean food. Tony agreed because Tony wanted so deeply the world to know about his granddad and how great of a person he was, which he would learn by eating his food. And the company had a big boom for a few years. Tony and the shareholders made so much money. But there are many times when Tony told me he wasn't happy what he originally started out with. Eventually, business started to decrease and the company failed. And this was not because the concept wasn't great or the location wasn't good, but because the passion and the drive that allowed Tony to grow so fast. His why was lost between the rubble that was left after the improvements. With all the changes and the partnership with the restaurant group, the new ultimate motive or their why is produce profit. The customers could feel the difference. The story of Tony's granddad got lost behind the new recessed lights, the warm colored wood furniture, the ambient music, the large live moss wall that extended the entire length of the restaurant. Tony originally started the restaurant based on his sole purpose, his why, which was to highlight his granddad's Trinidadian culinary culture. The Pastry Bear Podcast.
Pastry Bear.
People don't necessarily buy what you do, but they buy why you do it. The why can be the storyline of your product or your service. This is the reason there's always a storyline behind every chef you see on TV, you know. Have you ever just watched like a Food Network cooking show or cooking series and see that there's always a storyline? And the storyline is always the chef's why. Whether it's they're there because of their son or their daughter, because of the mom or the dad, because they want to prove something to somebody that said that they couldn't do it. There is always a why. And that why can be turned into a story. And that story can be sold to the world. I watched an episode of Chop on Food Network with Chef Andrew Fowles, a Jamaican-born chef who now lives in America. His journey in the kitchen was influenced by the one person who saw a light in his Jamaican grandmother motivated him throughout his youthful years. Because his mom had moved from Jamaica to London in seek of better life and opportunity, his grandmother became his support system. She inspired him to become a chef based on the flavor development of some of the traditional dishes she created. He spoke highly of her and how she helped to mold him into the man he became. Making her proud and representing her and his Jamaican roots became his why. He wanted to strive to be the best. Chef Fowles was authentic and true to his culture on the TV series. He baked what we would call Caribbean based, or Caribbean dishes, which was influenced by his grandmother and his youth from the ingredients in the mystery basket. And if you watch Chop, then you know that there's 4 chefs competing for a title. And each chef that does not produce will be chopped. There was a basket given to each competitor with 4 or 5 ingredients, or maybe 3. And you would have to use those ingredients to create a dish to wow your judges. Chef Fowles was wonderful in this competition. But another important thing that I saw in that episode was the why behind Chef Fowles' participation in the competition. There was a grand prize, and it was insinuated that he wanted to use some of this money, if he won, to facilitate a trip to London to meet up with his mom, who at that point he hadn't seen in over 16 years. The show producer was able to convey his story accurately via his why, which was the ultimate allure to sell the audience based on their emotions. It created a point of interest which would pull the audience to continue watching, to see the underdog win. And he did. He not only won once, but he won 3 times. His story was so widely publicized, it opened numerous doors that allowed Chef Fowles to grow rapidly. To think that he moved from Jamaica to the States carrying his culinary culture with him, accompanied by his why, that helped to put him in a position where he was now able to showcase what he had to offer. Just imagine that. A young man that was raised by his grandmother. She was so inspiring to him. He strived to do his best so he can make her proud. He wanted to cook like her, so he became a chef. And because he wanted to make her proud, and he wanted to be a great chef like her, those 2 things was his why. The reason he is who he is today. That's important for you to see. Chef Fowles, to me, has not lost his why. And it's something that is evident in his present. Everything he does now is representing Jamaica, his roots. And psychologically, it's tied to his grandmother's cooking. Even though he is now what, some would consider a celebrity chef, he's still steadfast to his why. The reason he started on this journey, the purpose behind his drive, the fueling factor to his dreams, the motivation that he used to continue striving towards his goal. If Chef Fowles embraces his why 100%, eventually he will become a monumental Caribbean chef, and he would create a path for himself which would solidify his place in the Caribbean culinary scene.
What côté podcast distribué avec Winston Murdoch.
Watching the murder.
Whoa, we're cooking up a storm today.
These stories that I told resonated with me. And I'm telling you these stories because we're all similar. It don't matter the situation. It don't matter if you're a chef or you're not a chef. I only speak in this context because this is what I know. Like I said, I'm not going to speak about things that I don't know. I know about cooking. So whatever examples I use is going to be centered around cooking, and it's going to be centered around the Caribbean and Jamaica. If you sit down and have a conversation with many of the most talented culinary experts, you would see that the why in their journey is the leading factor in their long-term success. I figured this out very shortly after I found an interest in baking. But I was still too young to understand or grasp that concept. It took me some years to really understand the importance of the why and how it correlates with your purpose. My love for food has been present for as long as I can remember. As a fetus, I came into this world weighing a whopping 10 pounds 8 ounces. It took my mom 18 hours to give birth. And once I was here, I ate everything in sight. I had a special liking for food, not knowing that later in my life, I would become a decorated chef. In my younger years is when I really started to appreciate food. It was always interesting to me how my mom could take these few ingredients and make such delicious meals. I remember standing in the doorway that separated me and my sister's room from the kitchen. That kitchen was only 14 by 10 feet. It only had a prep table, a dining room table with 4 chairs, along with a mini stove and a refrigerator. There was no running water in that kitchen, but it was exciting to taste the food that came out of it. The depth of flavor was par none. My mom was a great cook, and I don't think no one that tried her food could deny that. Some of my favorite things that my mom made were her banana fritters. They were a little bit oily sometimes, but the flavor was on point. And don't let me start talking about the baked beans and salt fish with boiled banana and yam, or the salted mackerel rundown with fried dumpling, or what they call Johnny cakes. Another one of my most favorite meals from my mom was double fried green plantains. In some part of the world they call that tostones, but in Jamaica we call it pressed plantain, or fried green plantains. And that I used to have with an over easy egg. Oh, to this day, this is still one of my go-to meals, minus the egg, of course. Now I substitute the eggs with some black beans, some stewed black beans with a little bit of coconut milk. Sunday in my Caribbean home was sacred. After church, I would look forward to going home to feast in that big Sunday spread. If you're from the Caribbean, then you understand exactly what I'm saying. And if you're not, I'm going to explain. In the Caribbean, our most Caribbean homes, Sunday is a day of worship and a day of family. And my mom always ensures that every Sunday she makes the best meals. On any given Sunday, you could go to my house and there was some form of salad, which is lettuce, cucumber, tomato, and then we have the rice and beans with the coleslaw. And then my mom would make her signature barbecue chicken. Seeing my mom bake the chicken, then removing the cuts from the tray, pouring water on the tray to release the fond, which became the base for her famous barbecue sauce. This was the first inkling that food was forever gonna be a part of my life.
cooking up a storm today.
Watching a Murdoch.
Wakute Podcast Distributor.
What up, y'all, and welcome to another episode of the Pastry Bear Podcast. While I was in 10th grade in high school, I was now able to choose my future career. I only had two options in mind. One, becoming a mechanical engineer, and the other one was becoming a professional disc jockey. Music was important to me, and music still is important to me. But life had another plan. You see, in high school, there was the mechanical side of it was under the woodwork. So you would learn woodwork and a little bit of mechanic. But that class was full. And I was placed into home economics. Oh, I was so upset. Home economics was pretty much clothing and textile and food preparation. I didn't want to be a chef, but I did like to cook. But the reason why I made a decision to stay was the fact that I was able to cook for my friends every Friday, which brought me an eternal joy. After completing high school, yet again, the universe and its influences cornered me in the kitchen of the Runaway Bay Hart Hotel and Training Institute, prestigious vocational school designed for culinary arts and other careers in the hospitality industry. This was a true turning point for me. Because when I was a child, if I could foresee my future in the work world, I knew I didn't want to work in a place that had a dress code. Because I like to dress comfortably. I didn't see myself going to work with my shirt tucked into my pants. Let's just say I'm a shorts, tank top, and flip-flop type of guy. This was where my why started to flourish. The culinary school opened my eyes, and I started to see how much I really enjoyed food. One of the reasons I love cooking was because I love to eat. Then the other reason I love to cook was because I love to see people eat. But subconsciously, I also wanted to outcook my mom. But more importantly, I wanted to serve people with dishes that was created by my mind, which was influenced by my culture and environment in Jamaica, and executed by my hands. Seeing the pleasure on people's face after consuming a meal that I created was addicting to my soul. The meals I grew up eating were more flavorful than what they were teaching us to prepare in culinary school. Then a question came to me. What if the classic Jamaican dishes were elevated? That question became the reason behind my purpose, my why. I wanted to see Jamaican cuisine represented on the world stage. I started to understand flavor and texture and presentation. I had a desire to know everything that was related to my field of studies, food. I signed up for every educational opportunity. I volunteered for happenings in other departments to learn. With every situation, I constantly asked questions. And you know what was my main question? 3 letters. Guess what? Why? Why was always the first question I asked. If a chef puts, let's say, baking powder in a cake, I want to know why. And as I got more knowledge in my career, my palate started to develop. And for most of my life, I was eating to satisfy the urge or fulfillment of my hunger. But the why helped me to understand eating to satisfy interest and love for food and to appease my palate.
Pastry Bear. Pastry Bear.
Yo, why you are run the cut in a murder, can you
Pastry Bear. Pastry Bear.
Watching a uppity with no pity, the road carver versatile, this a represent. Watching a Murdoch.
The why in my story is the reason I continue chasing my dream. My dream of assisting in the development and the evolution the Jamaican/Caribbean culinary world. Throughout this process, I've faced many different changes, but the end result always remained the same. I want to show the world the food that I fell in love with, the food that was created around my culture, the food that has stood the test of time, the food that represents richness and vitality, the food that is organic, truly organic, because the ingredients are not seen as profitable to mass producers or interesting enough to be manufacturers worldwide. The food that is fragrant and delicious, which came straight from the source, fresh to the table. A food that warms my heart and soothes my soul, with flavors that are extremely bold. Can you tell that I love this cuisine? It's not only me. I believe that every person that come in contact has something positive to say about the Jamaican food experience. Who's listening to this right now has been captivated by the Jamaican cuisine? Then let us know. Let me know. Write a comment, send me a DM, or send me an email at thepastrybearpodcast@gmail.com. But while that food has all these qualities, there's a few parts that needs improvement, like techniques used to prepare the dishes, textures, presentation, and the formalization of professional recipes, especially in the area of pastry. And this we will discuss more in the future episodes. You know, I know on this journey, some people are gonna argue that the sweet treats and the food doesn't need any improvement. But Henry Ford summed it up best. He said, if I asked people what they wanted, they would say they want faster horses. There's nothing wrong with the food remaining in its original state. They both can play a part in uplifting the Caribbean experience. There's a market for both options. Not everyone is gonna want to eat street food all the time. Sometimes they may wanna sit in a nice restaurant and enjoy Jamaican/Caribbean cuisine with a fine dining experience. The invention of the car didn't make the horse become obsolete. And maybe it did, but it also created a space for growth, business opportunities, and increase in productivity. Just imagine if you were supposed to ride a horse from one side of Jamaica to the other side. Wherever you are, let's say if you're in Miami, just imagine you want to go to New Orleans and you have to ride a horse. There's so many positive things that came out of the invention of the car. And there will be a lot of positive things to come out of the invention of the modern cuisine that is coming. This modern Jamaican/Caribbean cuisine has been the driving force or the why in my purpose. I wanted to learn everything so I could elevate my mom's best recipes. I wanted to master baking so I could re-engineer my grandmother's baking recipe book too. I want to be the best Caribbean pastry chef, producing classic Caribbean dishes and desserts that is palatable for the world consumption. And even though my 15 plus years has been a roller coaster, and for most of that time I had lost my way, but buried deep inside of me was my why, which was always present. But when I was able to realize my purpose, my why became stronger. I got many opportunities, both economical and professional, but they didn't align with what I believed, my why. I didn't know that's what it was at the time, but I could feel that this opportunity wasn't for me. The role of my why is to direct my purpose, to keep me centered so I don't lose it all like Tony because of money, but to strive in my profession like Chef Fowles is actively doing. My why will keep me grounded and motivated in what I do and how I do it. Thank you for listening to the Pastry Bear podcast. And I hope that this message will find its way to the person who's supposed to receive it. I hope that you continue to listen to this podcast and watch me grow. Please remember to follow me on Instagram at Chef W. Murdoch and follow my business page at Pastry Bear TV. You can go watch all my previous podcast interviews on Pastry Bear TV on YouTube and check me out on all other platforms. We really appreciate your support. Thank you.
Wapkote podcast Pastry Bear.
Seriously, I'll be a Bobby Company dropping there now. That big drop and get Bobby on this.
Pastry Bear. Pastry Bear.
Watching a uppity with no pity. The road carver versatile this represents. Watching a Murdoch.